Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Camille and today I'm going to be sharing with you how I plan and how I manage my time. So I think managing your time and planning are such an important part in being productive and getting things done. If you don't have a plan, then you kind of just have all of the things stuck in the back of your head and you're thinking about them constantly and you can't focus on an individual task. So I think it's so important to write down everything that you have to do, make a to-do list so that that is like one less thing that your brain's trying to think about as you're trying to do one of the things on your list. I love planning so much. I could literally plan for hours and hours and hours. I love to make to-do lists. I love to make like hour trackers where you like write in what you're going to do at each hour. I just love to have a plan and follow a plan and be productive. So today I wanted to share with you guys how I'm productive, and I have many different ways to do it because like I said, I love planning, so I always try out new strategies and new ways and new ideas to plan. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so the first one is for school or for work, and this is keeping a separate planner for school or for work. I use mine for school because I'm a student, but I feel like this just really makes sure that your life doesn't revolve around school, because you write everything that you have to do for school in here. So I always write like my assignments that are due next, I write tests, I write quizzes, and it keeps all of this information out of your head, because if you don't ever keep a planner for school or for work, then you have all of this like background noise in your head of all these dates that you have to remember, and then you're likely to miss assignments or not turn in work projects. So I feel like this is really helpful, and I also like splitting this up from like my normal life and my other to-dos, because I know that these to-dos are kind of mandatory for school, or for, I guess also you could do mandatory to-dos for work, and the other ones are like personal ones that have less of a deadline. So I really like separating it out, and I like using academic planners. I also really like using colors, but that's just a personal thing. And yeah, that usually keeps your school life pretty organized. Alright, so the second thing is to just do a brain dump. Dump everything that you think you need to do or that you need to do on a piece of paper and write it down, and then just keep adding to that list as you go about your day. So I feel like I'm always like going about my day and I'm like, oh, I needed to clean this, and so then you just write that on your list. And I feel like it makes it more manageable, and it actually shows you what you're working with, instead of just knowing that you have a bunch of to-dos in your head and not really knowing what they are. And sometimes you'll forget about them too, and it just makes it a lot easier to look at and a lot easier to plan out. Okay, so the third thing, now that we have a brain dump list and we have all of the to-dos for work or for school or for like your homework or whatever, now we can go about prioritizing. So we have to figure out what is due first, what do I need to get done first, what has a deadline, what can be moved around, what is most important to me, and kind of like, you don't have to necessarily give them an order. Sometimes I number them, sometimes I don't. Just kind of like mentally take note of what's most important that you get done and what's like can be put off for like a week or can be put off for a few days. Next thing is to keep a month calendar, whether it's on paper or if it's in Google Calendar or it's in Apple Calendars on your iPhone and then it's on your computer. Whatever it is, write down when you have things going on, when you have tests, when you have activities, when you have like lunch with a friend or whatever you have going on. Write them all down in a calendar so that you don't have to remember all those dates in your head, and it's easier to look at it spread out on a calendar and know what you have to do every single day. So that is very important. Getting a little more specific, plan out your week in ahead. So you already have your month planned out, basically. Not necessarily like you don't have it planned out, but like you know when you have certain things on certain days. So now you're going to look at your week. I usually like to do this on like a Sunday, or whenever you feel like it's like the reset for your week. Like do it that night and write out what you need to do every single day of that week. Try not to put too many to-dos on each day, and try to be realistic, as realistic as possible. Sometimes it's really hard because you have a million things to do, but you have to really think about, when do I have free time on that day? When can I do this on this day? How much time is it actually going to take me to do this? And just plan out over the course of the whole week how you're going to get a ton of stuff done. This is especially easy if you have a syllabus for your class for school, because you can just write out like, oh, on this day I know I'm going to have this homework, and just plan out when you're actually going to get your homework done, and try not to overwhelm yourself. Also try not to just write like school for the whole day. Try to include some other to-dos so you're not just focusing on one area of your life for a week or for a day. Now that you have your week planned out and you know what's happening on that day, you know what you need to get done, now you can look at individual days. I would definitely recommend only looking at one day at a time though, because if you look too far ahead, then you'll get very unmotivated, because you'll be I'm usually more motivated by the to-do list that I wrote last. So if I plan too far out ahead, I'm going to be more motivated to do the to-do list of like next week than the to-do list of today. So every night before you go to bed, you should sit down, you should review what you did today, and if you got everything done, what you need to do tomorrow to catch up from today, or what is on your to-do list for tomorrow, and plan out like, oh, what's happening today? Do I have events today? And just figure out how you can fit your time together and get everything done. Fit your time together, fit your to-dos together so that you can get everything done and you can be super productive, and then you can go to bed without having to worry about remembering all the things you have to do tomorrow, because they're all written down on paper that you can look at when you wake up the next morning. Also, you can write your to-dos on a computer or on like your notes on your phone. I personally like to write them in paper, but I think that's just a me thing. Some people like to use technology better, some people like pen and paper. It just depends what you like. Alright, so now that we're down to individual days, there are multiple different ways you can plan. I think you just have to figure out what works best for you and what doesn't. One of them is you can do an hourly schedule. Basically, you write down all the hours of the day, and you first fill in what all is like has to happen that day or is already scheduled for that day, and then you think about how long it's going to take you to do every single to-do, and you fill it in the appropriate time, or like when it makes sense. Make sure to include travel time on that, like, oh, it takes me half an hour to get to work, so make sure to include that and don't just like leave that off, because that's something that you're doing. And yeah, I found these really fun to try to like stay on top of. Just really make sure you're realistic, otherwise you'll give up as soon as you get off track. But yeah, I really like using them. Next one is to just write a flat out to-do list. But one thing that can help you is if you write it in the order of which you're going to do it. So it's kind of thinking about time, like which time you're going to do it, but you're like but you're not like giving yourself time constrictions. So that means that you're not going to feel as overwhelmed if you go off the time, or if you take a little extra time on one thing than another. So just write a to-do list, because like I said, getting this stuff out of your head and like planning the next day is very helpful and helps you sleep a lot better. And yeah, okay, this is kind of a little tip, but either take a picture of your to-do list or write it in your notes, so that if you're out and about or wherever you are, you can always mark off your to-do list. You can always see what you have to do, and you don't feel like you can prepare for like, oh, when I get home, what am I going to have to do? And you can like look at that ahead of time and see to make sure you're still on track. Alright, another way that you can organize your to-do list is by what your priority is. So put your number one priority at the top and the least priority at the bottom, and then just work down from there. And that's a good way to get all the things you want to do done, and then work from the most priority. I feel like there's prioritist. Is there a word for like I don't know. Anyways, but the thing that you need to get done the most, you'll get done first, and then last you'll do the thing that's least important to do. Okay. Alright, so my next tip is this is more of a tip than like a way that I plan, but is to figure out when you work best. So this is kind of like working smarter and not harder. So if you get really tired out at night, go to bed early and wake up earlier and do your task in the morning, or vice versa. Figure out just what works for you and how you can arrange your schedule so that you're actually the most productive and you don't procrastinate. Another thing that you can do is you can set timers. I love timers, because then you aren't stressed out the whole time about, say you have to leave in 30 minutes, and you need like 15 minutes to get ready, set a 15-minute timer, and then you don't have to keep checking the clock every 2 minutes or 1 minute to see that 15 minutes has been up, because the timer will go off and you don't have to worry about it. It's like, there's a lot of like when you're planning, you want to get everything, like the background noise, out of your head so you can focus on one task and get it done, and so then you can move on to the next task, but also knowing that all the rest of your tasks that were in your head are like also going to get done, if that makes any sense. Alright, so that is it for this video. Basically just be very realistic with yourself into what you need to get done and how you're going to get it done, when you're going to get it done. The more realistic you are, the more you'll be able to complete your to-do list, and then you won't be getting behind all the time. So I feel like that's really important. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. I hope you can go after this video and do some planning, get your life together, and be super productive. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. I already said that. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, give this video a thumbs up, comment down below what is one of your to-dos that you have to do today. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!